Hello everyone, thank you for joining us and welcome to the Micon Hour. We are a mining consultancy that has provided independent professional advice to mining companies, providers of capital, law firms, and government agencies for over 30 years. Staffed by senior industry consultants with extensive international experience, we are here to discuss relevant topics for the benefit of our mineral industry followers. And now, here is your host, Micon's Mineral Resource Specialist, Alan San Martin.
Hello everyone, I'm Alan San Martin. We are happy to have you here back in another episode of the Micon Hour. I normally begin with our sustainability statement, but this time we're going to talk about sustainability. Micon's expert is with us today. In this episode, we will talk about mining and sustainability. This is a pre-recorded episode. Feel free to contact us later if you wish to discuss your project with us. We will provide the means to do so at the end of this episode. I'm here today with our co-host and colleague, Karen Nash. She's joining us from our Norwich office in the UK. Karen is the Vice President of Environmental and Social Performance at Micon. Hello Karen, thank you for co-hosting. How are you?
Hi, Alan. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm actually not in the UK office physically at the moment. I'm sitting in sunny France, which is lovely. Thank you.
Oh, very nice. Okay, so let's get to it. Let's talk with the very basics, Karen. What is responsible mining?
Okay. Well, in your introduction, Alan, you mentioned that we're going to talk about mining and sustainability. So I'm going to take it back to that point, because I think being the term responsible has only recently, relatively to sustainability, come into the mining discourse. And being a responsible member of a community can mean taking actions that don't do any harm, right? That take account of future generations. And the sustainability piece came in, can be traced back sort of 20, 30 years to what was then called the Brundtland Commission, which defined sustainable development. So we were talking about international development at the time, and that sort of development meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That's the standard definition of sustainable development. And I think we can substitute sustainable development for sustainable mining, and say that responsible mining should meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It's exactly the same thing. But when we're taking this idea of responsibility forwards, there are several aspects to that responsibility, okay, to future generations, making sure that anything we do now does not diminish the possibility of future generations to do pretty much exactly what we're doing now. I think it's difficult, just as an aside, on the mining front, because of course mining kind of by definition can't be sustainable, because at some point all of the mining resources are going to be mined out. That by definition means that we are to impact future generations, right? But yes, we can do our best to be responsible about it and to plan forwards. And I mean, maybe later in this conversation we'll talk about how we can recycle and produce a circular economy. But anyway, going back to responsible mining, I think you've got a graphic somewhere. Are you going to put that up or not?
Yes, I'm going to put that.
We can just look at the definition, overarching definition of what aspects of responsibility we need to take into account. We have alongside sustainability, we have the terms of ESG, which is environmental social governance, which have come into the discussion as well. So we can take environmental responsibility, we can see that on here, social responsibility, and the responsibility for governance. But when we're talking about mining projects, I hope I'm making sense here, Alan, you can interrupt me if I'm not. We're talking about broader mining projects. Of course, we're used to hearing on the technical, financial, economic side as well. And everybody who's running a project, I mean, largely within Micon, we're actually on the financial, economic, technical side. and not so much on the governance, environmental, social side, purely in terms of the weight and the number of people we've got within Micon, right? But
yes,
when we're talking about any single mining project, these are equally weighted as demonstrated in the graphic here. So these all have to work. We have to be responsible on all of these different levels now. So for me, responsible mining is financial, economic, technical, and social, and environmental, and governance. And for me, responsible mining is taking all of these into account at the earliest possible stage in planning of a mining project. That for me is the key. That's when we're really demonstrating that we're being responsible. We're actually considering all of these aspects early on, and we're not treating environmental and social in particular as an add-on, way to get a permit, way to get our mining project approved, or just another hoop to jump through. This idea of responsibility is a much more of a philosophical and an early stage ethical argument, if you like, but it actually, it pays off in the long term financially, and we can talk about that.
Yes.
There we go. Rambling on.
if I may have another question here. You said basically the foundation of all what it means to be responsible is an ethical thing. Now, when mining projects are happening in many different jurisdictions in the world, and the government side is when, I will say, like the owner of the house, right? He put the rules and say, this is how things work here. And the question is how mining companies can be responsible or become more responsible to do effectively in the field and have a good impact in the community and the stakeholders of a project. So how that works?
That's a really interesting question. I like the way you've thought about that and phrased it, because I think the minimum, of course, is complying with the national framework, regulations, expectations, cultural expectations, economic expectations, and so on. That is the minimum. And obviously some countries have spent more time thinking about and developing their mining strategy than others. Some countries have spent more time focusing just on the economics of mining development in order to improve the wealth of the country, or potentially the wealth of the central coffers. Other countries have thought more recently about the more strategic socioeconomic aspects. So are working towards making it more encouraging mining companies to think about the socioeconomic sides as well. There's tax regimes, we won't go into that. But I think so regardless, if you like, of what we can call the minimum, or the minimum national standards, of which, as I say, some are better than others, we can align with what's currently thought of as good or best international practice in this. So if a mining company is entering any jurisdiction, they don't have to look too far to find guidance at an international level that's been developed over the last 20 years, but is really coming to the fore in the last sort of 8 or 9. They don't have to look very far to find guidance that can help them go beyond the national levels of expectations and into the international realm, where they can then automatically, if you like, if they're adhering to these guidelines from the beginning, they can reach investors and the public and so on at all different levels from the beginning. So it's not difficult to find the guidance. I think that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
But you have to understand how it gels with the national requirements, and of course you have to be sensitive to the local context as well. So there's different levels of this.
Yeah. So I suppose mining companies need to have a very well thought strategy according to the reality in the field.
Exactly.
So they can really get to that effective, good impact
is the
I
performance.
know that the mining, it has a negative impact. Obviously, it has an impact in the environment, but I think that is temporary and it can be mitigated and recover in time. But what the communities, I mean, the social side is that all these new investments and all this economical impact in the community can be used as a booster of the local economy. So they take advantage of this bonanza, I will say, and then fund local projects so they can be sustainable after the mine is gone, because the mine is always finite resource. It's 20, 50 years, sometimes even 12 years. It could be a short life, but they have to take the advantage of that. It's an opportunity, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's interesting how you're explaining that. I think you're absolutely right. On the face of it, mining investment in any particular area should be a good thing. I think there are complications that we have to be aware of around where the tax revenues go effectively. And the balance, there's a very delicate balancing act that mining companies have to do, that is sensitive to local context, between obviously paying into the national coffers through the taxes and licensing fees, whatever's applicable, depending on the regime, and at the same time ensuring that the local communities are also benefiting. And there is always, quite often, there's a bit of friction between the two. Which can be resolved by effective on-the-ground transparency by the mining companies, by willingness to listen to the local communities and to understand the dynamics between the politics at the national level, at the local level quite often, and also the needs and desires or perceived desires of the local communities. We could get down into the detail of how to encourage local development that is locally appropriate, and there are particular skills and techniques to ensure that. But I think an overarching way of demonstrating responsibility at this level, at the local, on the ground level, is to be open to bringing in, is open to being able to engage with the communities at a level where the communities themselves are really listened to, as well as being spoken at. And I think that's the whole piece about stakeholder engagement and social community dialogue and participation. We could go off in all sorts of directions on this, Alan, to be honest.
Yes, I know.
It's quite a big field. But I'm trying to just highlight some of the touch points as in response to your questions. So I hope that's okay.
So I think I want to have just one last question, is how a mining company can build trust in the community, because that's all about. I mean, a local, they've never seen these foreigners coming into their land, and the first thing is that they don't trust them and say, I mean, this guy is just want exploit us and just go and leave us behind. So how a company can build trust in a local community?
That's very interesting too, isn't it? Trust is critical. We hear about this term social license as well, which I'll sort of throw in there, but it's kind of, a little bit. Social license has many aspects, one of which is trust, one of which is legitimacy. So the company has to be seen to be legitimate, but also so the company has to be seen to be legitimate by the local communities, but the local communities also have to be seen to be legitimate by the mining company. That is a critical piece as well. Okay. The mining companies have to recognize that they are stepping into the backyard effectively of people, and it all comes down to respect between people. I think trust is built on respect. We also have credibility. So the mining company has to be credible, has to be believable, has to be honest, has to be transparent, and that will build the element of trust. It takes time. It also takes, I think, it takes humility. In my experience, humility the key, to try to, if you like, not negate the way that mining companies have operated in the past in general or have been perceived to operate, but that ability to listen and to engage with communities at the local level, that is fundamental to building trust. Trust is never guaranteed, okay? Even your best friend, you may trust them up to a point, right? But you never do that. So it's the same. But it's definitely about, I think your question was how to build trust. Is be present and be prepared to listen and be seen to be taking into account what you hear. I think that's really important.
Okay. Well, very interesting topic, Karen. I mean, we can talk for hours, I think, but I want to thank you for sharing all this interesting topic with us. Do you want to give us any closing words for us as Micon expert in sustainability?
Well, I think, as I say, I think that the idea about being responsible, I just leave, nobody wants to be irresponsible, right? Do they?
Yeah.
No. So being responsible takes effort, but it's something that that can be done if we're clever about it. So I'd leave it with that. Let's be responsible, not irresponsible.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay. And to all our listeners, we're not going to have a Q&A session today, but please feel free to contact us and we will provide the contact information of Micon. And you can contact Karen Nash directly or any of our consultants. Now, this is the end of the broadcast. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please feel free to leave your comments or questions, and be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our newsletter so you're kept informed on future episodes.